it's quite a transformation. And thereafter, this remarkable transformation also comes, on the backdrop of the recent National Family and Health Survey, which has been carried out by the government for, I think, 2019 and 2021. And they have found that India now has 1,020 women for every 1,000 men. It is a huge swing, as you can call it. And this towards a prominently female population is a remarkable movement for a country which for centuries, it has been one of, as our Amartya Sen had put it, of missing women. So this truly reflects the strides that the country has made towards gender equality and women's empowerment. And now with greater access to literacy, aspirations of women are fast changing. They are asserting themselves, taking charge of their lives and playing a very critical role in the growth of development of the country. So in this background, and who better to represent than this bunch of bright young bureaucrats that we have today with us. So ladies, to start with, I think what I'll do is I'll direct the questions to you all, and whoever wants, they can start with the interaction, and then the others can follow suit. So first, I would love to hear from you that, though in India, there are so many other avenues which are now available, but then, this charm of the civil services is still not reducing. And it's almost 10 lakh candidates who apply every year, and only the lucky 900 or so are taken in. So how did you guys think of getting into the civil services? I mean, was it a planned and focused thing since your early education, or was it a sudden change of track? How did it go for you? So any of you can start off. Esha, would you like to take the question first?
Yeah, sure, ma'am. So a very hearty good afternoon to everybody, and thank you for inviting me as one of the panelists for today's session. And I think it's going to be a very interesting session. I'm looking forward to hearing out my fellow colleagues. So this question has been asked several times to me, and
Sure.
it's very interesting because when I was a young girl, my father used to get competition success review at home. I don't know how many of you remember CSR. It used to be a big deal, and anybody who would want to clear civil service exams, it was like a mandatory magazine to read. Exactly. So as a child, I have read those magazines, and yeah, in the back of my mind, I wanted to get into the civil services, but then I got a scholarship and I went to the US to study, and I studied international relations there. And while I was studying international relations, I took a class in African international politics. And then I really got interested in Africa, and I learned an African language because I decided to work in West Africa in some INGO. And I was all set to go there. And then my sister, who herself is a bureaucrat, she's an Indian Foreign Service officer of 2001 batch. Oh, wow. She kind of brainwashed me, and she said that, and she and her very esteemed ambassador at that point of time, both of them sort of, talked me into it. And they said that, there's so much to do in our own country. Why do you want to go so far to West Africa? Maybe you can later in your life, but you just come and see how it is in your own country. And I decided to come back, and I decided to take to take this exam because I actually worked with an NGO for some time, and I felt that there were a lot of roadblocks that the NGOs that I had in my mind, I perceived them as roadblocks because it's not very easy when you're working in an NGO. There are a lot of hurdles that you face, and I thought that the best service, I mean, UPS, the civil services actually gives you an opportunity to work with the grassroots and work for the people of the country and really make a difference in the way things are done. And why IPS? Because I had no idea about police, until then, to be very honest, except for what we read in the newspaper or what we see in the movies. So, everything is not very positive. We don't get to hear positive things about the police. So, and there was an incident that happened which really shook me deep within, when there was an incident of a young girl who was molested in the middle of like a road, and nobody took any action. And it was narrated to me by a very close friend, and it really moved me. And I decided to, put IPS as one of my top options, because I thought that it will really give me an opportunity to really bring a change in the way things are done, and especially when it comes to the security for women and children. So that's how I came into the service, and I must say that every day is a very fulfilling experience for me. And now, as SP Kalaburgi, I am also right now in the field, so every day is a new experience. At the same time, it's a very fulfilling experience for me.
Wonderful, very interesting. So we will move on to Dr. Tanisha. Would you like to share with us?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you. My story is a little different. I had never thought about joining the civil services, even though I come from a family with 3 generations of civil servants before me. And in fact, like you said, Isha ma'am, my father introduced me to competition success review way back in school. And but I didn't really think of civil services. I'm a doctor. I was doing residency in surgery in a government hospital in Delhi, and preparing for my PG. And meanwhile, PG seats are very difficult to come by these days.
Oh, yes.
So my dear mother one day sat me down in the middle of the night and brainwashed me, literally, saying, Beta, we come from this family and you are a rattu, you know how to mug up stuff. So the only person in our family who can continue the legacy is you. And it worked. I gave the exam and I cleared, and here I am.
Wow, that's interesting. So that's a totally change of track.
It is.
From a doctor to a civil servant.
It is. And it's pretty nice.
Yeah, wonderful. And what about, it's a medical fraternity's loss, I think. And what about Devasmita?
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hi.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this discussion. So I was doing my graduation and I had civil services in the mind that time. But I was, during the second year, my focus was towards clearing CAT. So I was actually preparing for CAT. And by that time, it did occur to me that I could not do both together, both MBA and this thing. So I thought I'll do my MBA and then I go to services if I can clear it. But it happened so that even my family said that, you should give it a try. And in my final year of graduation, I gave my first attempt. I cleared it, and then I never looked back. I'm here, and I think civil service is more of a calling than a career. And once you're into it, if you're doing a good thing, you feel very satisfied. So job satisfaction wise, I think we are doing it's really great.
Absolutely, wonderfully put. So tell me, during your training and initial working years, did you guys find the working environment pretty inclusive and gender sensitive in your office or in your service? Or were there ups and downs? I'm sure in police, it must have been quite a challenge. So why don't you share with us, Isha? You're not new.
Yes, ma'am. It is still not inclusive. It's been 10 years now. Things are getting better. But we still have a long way to go. And we have all kinds of officers. Some of the officers are extremely supportive, and some of them are not. They come with their own preconceived notions about women officers. And as you rightly put, police has traditionally been a masculine kind of a profession, seen as a masculine profession, which in my opinion, it is not. It requires a lot of, it's a mix of everything. So there is, and initially, yes, because it was 10 years back and I joined as a probationer in a city called Jabalpur in Madhya Pradesh, and younger and wet behind the years, very inexperienced. And I was taken as, some very lightly. But I think, the only way is that, you need to work hard, and you need to show that you mean business, and you need to be professional. You need to know your job. And once you know your job, you know your profession, and you actually put in hard work, then everybody, all those people who doubted you will actually come out and support you fully. And even now, 10 years down the line, I see that there are certain officers who would doubt your abilities just because you're a woman. So for instance, when it comes to maybe some technical kind of a thing, like I was in charge of the command center earlier in Bangalore City Police. I was DCP command center, and it was primarily a technical job where I was, creating new softwares and looking after it was the technical backbone of Bangalore City Police. So not all, but a few officers weren't too sure if I, being a woman, would be able to handle the technical aspect of policing, and which I did. I honestly speaking, when I joined, I did not know anything. I was more or less a blank slate when it came to software development. But then I started reading, I started learning, and I started sitting with the developers and started understanding what exactly was happening. And then finally I knew what was going on. So after that, they were able to trust me. And in fact, there was a time when my job was being given, despite me being the officer in charge, my projects were being given to some other male officer just because he was a man. And then I had to fight back and get my things back. So it happens every time. But at the same time, there are officers who are really, really supportive and who do not see you as a male or a female officer. They see you as an officer, which I would like, to be seen as.
Let's hope that day comes fast. And how was your experience, Dr. Tanisha?
So my service, I think, is pretty neutral.
There are a lot of ladies in your service.
Yes, there aren't too many ladies. There are more ladies compared to the police. But so for example, in my batch of 150 people, there are just 24 women. So there aren't too many ladies. But yes, a lot of women do prefer IRS over the other services, because maybe you can keep a work-life balance and have some time for yourself. But probation was very inclusive. There was no discrimination in any way. And even in the work sphere, I don't think there's a lot of discrimination in our service. For example, there's something called a coin posting, which is like undercover in the consulates abroad. So we have for the first time, we have 2 women who have gone as coins to different places. And even sensitive.
First time? Is it the first time 2 women have been posted?
Yes.
That's pretty late in the day.
It is, but it's a start.
It started, yes.
And sensitive postings like investigation, there are a lot of women there who actually chase after smugglers. So, and in my own case, I was posted in customs in a place called Air Cargo. And Air Cargo in Kolkata was a hub of smuggling activities for quite a while.
Oh my God.
And when I joined, I had no idea what I'm getting into. And I was told I was the first ever woman to be given this posting.
Oh,
and
it's an honor.
And I was the only person kept there for 3 years, because generally it is such a sensitive posting that people are transferred within 8 months, 1 year max. I was there for 3 years, and hopefully brought about a decent amount of change.
Wow.
But yeah, so
there is the benefit of having a lady in that chair.
Yes, there is no discrimination, because all sorts of postings are open to us.
We're glad to know
very
that.
inclusive.
How is it in the railways, Devasmita? Especially your railway protection force. How does it work there?
Yes, ma'am. So we are only 8 women.
Oh,
historically till now.
Goodness.
Yeah, we are only 8 women who have joined this force. And in our service, the service started in 1981. And till now, we are only 8 of us here. So there were certain issues regarding gender inclusiveness and creating a gender progressive ethos, because the people around were not familiar with the women officers being around. I still distinctly remember an incident during my training So the male probationers would come to the officers' mess for a change of attire during our field training. So from weapons training, we would go to infantry training and we'll change the dress. So we would go to the officers' mess, and when the male officers would go, the constables in the mess would stand in attention and say Jai Hind sir. And when the female officers or the probationers will be there, he'll stand at ease and say Namaste madam.
How bugging is that?
Yeah. So
what do you guys do? Don't pull them up?
We do. So it was the first week of our joining the service. So I think after 2 incidences, the third incident, we actually pulled him up and we said, this is not acceptable. I know you are not very accustomed to women officers being around, but officers are officers. As I really second what Isha ma'am said, we would really be happy to be treated as officers, not as a part of our gender.
Absolutely.
And I had a similar experience dealing with the technical thing, what like Isha ma'am said. So since 2018, we have been talking about facial recognition tech in railways, specifically in railway security. And when we started it, a lot of people said, they just hushed it up. They said, no, it's a very new thing. And we have to tell them, see, it's not a new thing. It's been from Second World War, and the private sector is using it majorly. In fact, they have gone over to mood recognition, gesture recognition now. So face recognition is not even a new thing.
Okay.
So it's time, or we'll miss the bus if we don't. If railways don't use the face recognition tech for enhancing our security. And I remember we had a very nice, a very professional DG who said, okay, what do you want to do? I said, we want to run a pilot. So he said, okay, go ahead. And we completed the pilot successfully. There were, the DG came for the POC and everything. But there were certain officers, I still remember, who during the presentations, yeah, they would not feel that the women officers can handle such a big project. So they said that it should be moved out of Bangalore to maybe Delhi or maybe Bombay. But eventually, as Isha ma'am said, your work talks. So if you can deliver results, I think then slowly we would see towards, there's a lot of ground to cover, but we can see ourselves towards a gender progressive department or force.
Wonderful. So I hope that, with these changing mindsets, these patriarchal attitudes also go in time. And now coming a bit to our administration side, tell me, there's a general view in the Aam Janta that our public administration, it's very cumbersome, outdated, and really not citizen friendly. So how can we move towards more digitization, transparency, and smart execution? So can you, in your work spheres, can you tell us how we can move towards smart execution of administration? Starting with maybe Isha.
Okay. So ma'am, this is already happening. Lot of the way the governance is now being done has changed a lot, and we have moved into e-governance, e-offices, which have become very common now. Like they're increasingly being adopted throughout, at least in Karnataka, they are being adopted throughout the state, and we have we have computers in each of the police stations, internet in each of the police stations, which is still not there in many of the other states. So I think
are the people who are manning the police stations, are they able to work on these computers? Are they trained and skilled to work on them?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am, completely, because now everything is on police IT, which is like CCTNS, and everything is online, and we have to put up everything, and which is being closely monitored at the district level and at the state level. So yes, all of them are properly trained, and they know that stuff very well. In fact, during their initial basic training itself, they are being taught all these skills. So yes, things have changed a lot, and also when it comes to lodging of FIR, which is many times, especially when it comes to cyber offenses. Cyber offenses are now, happening throughout the country, and in Karnataka, we have seen a high, increase, a steep increase in the cybercrime cases. For that, in Bangalore city, while I was DCP, we started something called a cybercrime incident reporting system, wherein people can lodge their cybercrime over the phone. So they don't even need to go to the police station. They don't even need a laptop and internet with them. They just need to pick up their phone and dial 100 or 112, which is the national emergency number, and register their complaint over the phone. And we have licensed with all the banks, and we get information from the bank, and we have actually registered more than 8,000 complaints since December 2020, and more than I don't remember the exact figure, but it is like maybe around 60 crores rupees have been actually saved, and people have got their money back. So these are the kind of initiatives that government is taking and the police department is taking. So I think the traditional view or that we have of the government being slow, not transparent, that is slowly giving way to more transparent and more technology-based governance.
I think our department is also the same.
Really?
I mean, even in customs and GST, we have a lot of online stuff. And in fact, I was talking to one of the lawyers a few days ago, and he is literally accusing our department, saying that आपका इतना सब online है, तो हमारे पास तो कोई file work ही नहीं है, case ही नहीं आते. So yeah, it's going towards better online work.
So thank God for technology. And how is it with the railways, Devasmita?
Yes, so even we are looking towards a lot of digitization. And a lot of, because technology is an enabler, and if you are not using technology, you are not going to be able to solve a lot of problems, bring in transparency. Technology brings a lot of transparency, which people want, because they see government as this opaque body. So technology gives us this opportunity to be in connection with the people that we serve. And in a big way, railways is also moving towards imbibing that tech ethos, whether in the system as well as towards public service delivery. So even in railway security, we are using a lot of tech. Whatever incidences that are reported, even the certain monitoring, the train escorts, the women's security duties. So we are using a lot tech in a much larger manner, and I feel that it will be more in the coming years. And we are establishing cyber cells across the country, which was the very first sort of a thing which was done, because earlier only police used to do it.
Oh.
So
how
we have been.
How is it different from the police cyber cell? I mean, how is it going to be different?
Yes, so police deals with mostly the IPC cases and other minor acts, while we deal with a lot of railway specific crime, which is a railway property related crime, as well as crime related to railway passengers under Railways Act, which we are empowered. Now, in these cases, what happens that we've been working on these major e-ticketing softwares, which were compromising the IRCTC. IRCTC is the nodal body for e-ticketing in the country, and it has a revenue of around 100 crores a day. And we found out that there were hackers who were based in Dubai, who were sitting and siphoning off around 5 to 10 crores every day by blocking a certain part of the system. And along with the help of CBI and our counterparts from various immigration and some other counterparts in other parts of the country, we were able to actually nab that guy and block the entire software system. So these are the kind of cyber attacks which is happening in railway systems, and we are able to deal with them based on technology initiatives that have happened.
So just for our clarification, and since it's a global meet, I just wanted to know one thing. Any crime which takes place in the railway station or in the train on railway property, only the railway police can deal with it, is it? like RPF deals with it, or how does it work?
So IPC-based crimes, the GRP will deal with it, and the railway property and 27 offences under our Railways Act will be dealt by RPF.
So between GRP and RPF, what is the difference?
The difference is that the GRP will deal with the IPC crime. So if there is a murder in the train, then the GRP is going to register this thing. But if there's a cyber attack, or if there's a problem with e-ticketing there's a criminal offense there, so then we will be dealing with Section 143 of Railways Act.
Oh,
So
okay.
the duties are quite different. Though the
Demarcated, clearly demarcated. Because like laymen don't know about this. You know?
Yes, they do not.
The thin line between
Yes.
and even in Indian revenue, there is this new thing called faceless, Dr. Tanisha. Something faceless in income tax as well as customs. What exactly is this faceless? Can you just appraise us about this? Dr. Tanisha, are you able to get me? Hello? Hello?
Did you ask me something?
Yes, Doctor. Actually, what
Because my net is unstable.
Okay, so you know, these days we're hearing a lot of talks about faceless income tax, faceless service, customs, faceless service. It's so much in the media. What exactly is this faceless thing?
So faceless is basically where, for example, in customs, a lot of the imports and exports that happen, they have to be cleared and assessed. So when somebody brings in, supposing you bring in something from America to India by
Connectivity. If you switch off your video for a minute, maybe you know it will be easier.
We have to assess whether it is okay. So it generally, if a flight lands at Kolkata, the bills of entry that we have for import, that's an import document. So that was assessed by people at Kolkata itself. So with the faceless assessment coming in, a bill of entry can go anywhere in India. So that brings in a lot of transparency, and it's very fast. It's fast work. So and in GST also we have a lot of online. We have a new system in GST wherein everything from registration to payment of your taxes and returns and everything is online. And the taxpayer doesn't even have to come to the office of the GST. So
this system working,
so that
like,
is, I mean, it's all very new, and we have I still can't hear you properly.
Yeah, ma'am, there's a connectivity issue. I can see that. But nevertheless, yeah, you were telling us about. So actually, I wanted to know.
Yeah. So our department has a whole.
Yeah.
You wanted to know
that does it really work efficiently? It means your the goods are coming at one place, and somebody at the other end of the country is processing the papers. I mean, does it have some drawbacks where efficiency is concerned?
Not really. Efficiency has increased.
Oh, really?
Because otherwise, oh yes, it's increased, and there's something called dwell time, wherein from the time it lands at the port till the time it's cleared out of the departmental premises, the dwell time has considerably reduced after faceless came in. So when something comes in, it's a two-step process. It is first assessed online. The people posted at that port will open up the boxes, examine everything in detail, and then let it out. So it's a two-step verification, basically.
Oh, okay.
So efficiency has increased.
And same thing as in income tax also, I think, you know, you file it at one place and somebody else, assessors at some other places, perhaps dealing with it. At least one thing is sure that, you know, corruption and leakages will be plugged now, isn't it?
much reduced.
Okay. Well, that's a great thing. So, tell me, have any of you faced any kind of, bias in your working place? Like, what happens? Like, I was a lady boss when I was in my work place in sale, and there were times when people used to have this thing, oh, a lady boss, they are, that patriarchal attitude, lady boss, and they would avoid even ladies being under them. Lady subordinates was a big, taboo. Ki nahi, 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 bhai, humko, I don't want ladies under me because wo chutti lete hain, jaldi jaate hain, late aate hain, all kinds of things. So this kind of thing, have you people also faced? I mean, any such experiences? Yes, Tisha.
Ma'am, not so explicitly like that. People won't say on your face that I don't want to work with you or under you or because you're a woman. But like sometimes they might have problem accepting the authority of a woman, and I really don't blame people because they come from their society, their socialization. There's a lot of there are a lot of factors that contribute to this kind of an attitude. But and sometimes they might try to patronize you. Sometimes they might try to be they might, as Debashmita said, that those people would not stand up and wish you. These things at our level now, because we are senior officers, we have come from the civil services. These things don't don't happen to us as much. But I know that a lot of our subordinates, maybe at the PSI level, the sub-inspector level, they face many such problems, and at the constabulary level, there are a lot of issues that they actually face. At our level, things have changed a lot, and people will not say anything to us on our face. At least, they would not dare to do that. They might have that kind of an attitude, but they will not express it. But I know that these problems exist, really exist for our subordinates, and we, as women officers, it is up to us to ensure that such kind of discrimination that they face is done away with. And it's a long journey, and we, because we are women, we are at least alive to this fact that this kind of discrimination exists. And we also know that if such discrimination happens, what damage it does to the self-esteem of a woman. And this is what I've seen in my police stations as well. So when I was DCP in Southeast, I went to the police stations and I just inspected, and I saw that women were mainly doing desk jobs. They were not being sent to the field. They were not doing patrolling duties. They were not doing crime duties. So I started asking them, and then I realized, and then I did a meeting of all the women officers and constabulary, and then I found out that many of them actually wanted to go to the field. Many of them actually wanted to do the patrolling duties, but they were not being encouraged to do that. Then what I did, I realized that there was some problem with the body language of our women as well, because they were because of so many years of being subjugated, they had lost their confidence. So I organized self-defense training for all these women. So they did mixed martial arts training for around 6 months, and then so this actually changed their perception about themselves. And then a lot of them started doing patrolling duties, and then I taught driving to a lot of them, 2-wheelers and 4-wheeler driving, and then they started going out. So I saw a shift in perception, not just for in these women, but I also saw there was a shift in perception of these male officers under whom they were working. And then they started actually recognizing the fact that they can actually contribute more efficiently. Otherwise, many times they are just considered as liabilities, which is something I do not want, because they have ability to contribute towards this, the police force. So basically this happens, but it is up to us to take action and ensure. Otherwise, what is the point of being an officer?
Yes,
You know, why are we here for? We are not just here to go to the office, come back and do our routine duties. We are here to ensure that there is some change in the system, and if you are able to bring about this change, then it will take time, but we need to keep working towards it.
Exactly. Wonderful. And Dr. Tanisha, any experience, anything which you'd like to share?
I think people in my department are more used to working with women as superiors. And but even so, they have a little bit, I think they're more comfortable with men because they generally don't come to women superiors very easily. And it's only when,
There is some hesitancy in approaching them.
And sometimes they think, I've had people coming to me with sob stories. Madam, ghar pe ye ho gaya hai, madam wo, madam this. So maybe they think that giving a woman a sob story is going to make life easier for them. And yeah, so, but yeah, people in my department, I think, work together much better and there's less resistance. But there have also been cases where personally one of my superiors had once made a snide comment, you know, on looks and you're looking nice, you're looking not nice or whatever. But then there's sometimes
nipped in the bud.
Yes. So once he got a very straight face from me, he didn't repeat that. So yeah. Okay. So then I think that way our department is a little better when it comes to working together.
Yes. So, you know, there's sense to numbers since there are more women in your department, I think.
Yeah, but there is one thing which I'd like to share. When I had joined my previous posting, there was no toilet for women in my office. And I mean, yeah, because that was the first time a woman was posted, so there was no toilet. And I had to like literally beg, borrow, steal and get one made for myself. And yeah, so little things like that.
Yes. In fact, here I'd like to share my experience. When I was in sales, I was in charge of whole of northern region operations, and operations is all about supply chain management, delivery, yards. So you're dealing with transporters, labor and all that. So there have never been a lady posted ever in charge of operations. And I used to love, challenges. So I told my, that time, my executive director that, sir, I would love to work in operations and give me a chance, because that's an area which is totally unexplored. And they were very apprehensive. No, in sales, we've never posted ladies. I said, just try me out. And so once I was posted, of course, it was a wonderful stint, almost 2.5 years. And but the only problem I faced was in all my warehouses all over the country, they don't have ladies' toilets. None of them, because it's not designed for ladies to be visiting the yard. So that was a big issue I used to face. But then, in times, I think these things will also change, definitely. How has your experience been there, Smita?
Yes, I would also say the same thing like Dr. Tanisha said. Even I had postings where there was never a woman posted there. So no toilets. We have to get those things get constructed. But on this point, I would like to talk about our experiences in bureaucracy. What I have felt in the last, like we have been here almost a decade, and I feel that like Isha ma'am said, nobody really comes up to your face and says that, okay, you're being discriminated. But I feel that gender stereotyping is done as a tool for manipulation many a times. And it's not that the person is knowing that you are inferior in some sort, but they use gender stereotyping. I'll give an example. Like, for example, when somebody gets married, and this I have heard at all levels, right? From constabulary to my level or anybody, above me. Somebody gets married, they'll say, oh, why don't you look for a headquarter posting? Now, I really don't understand what marriage has got to do with a headquarter posting. Or if somebody is, say, pregnant, so or somebody is expecting, or somebody has delivered a child, so they'll feel that now you should just move away from field postings.
Yeah.
Yeah, move away from the field posting. This is not the time to for you to dedicate at workplace. And I have had cases where, so there was this very interesting thing that happened. One of my female colleagues, she took 6 months maternity leave, which is what the government gives. And I remember she was, I mean, there was a lot of discussion going on that she took 6 months maternity leave.
Imagine.
And yeah, that was.
I've seen, you're very right, Devasmita. I've seen even in my workplace, they are very jealous. Kya 6 mahine ka usko chutti mil gaya, kind of, seriously. It's like that.
So, and she was she's a very diligent officer, a very hardworking officer, but she felt very perturbed regarding the discussions that were going on and how people would be like, even after years, her child is now 4 years of age. You're like, I remember you took 180 days leave. The discussion is still, yeah, it's still at rife. And I remember when I was about to deliver, she told me, what is your plan? I said, so I have a lot of support here. So I don't think I'll be taking 6 months. I'll join back in 40 days. That's my plan. I've spoken to my doctor. If everything goes fine, I'll join back. I joined back in 40 days. And she told me that, I think you don't have to hear what I heard from, a lot of people. And I said, no, there'll be 4 sets of other people who have something else to say. And there were people, and in fact, I was right and wrong both. I was right because I said there will be some people who have something to say, but there were the same sets of people who now said that you should be a good mother and you should focus on your child rather than your career. So I think it's 21st century and women don't need to be told what we need to do.
So correct, yes.
We just need to be given.
This is the problem, the workplaces, generally they tend to mirror or reflect the socio-cultural narrative of the country. So with time, I hope, these things would improve. But tell me.
But ma'am, judgments will always be there. As Devasmita rightly said, whatever you do something, you'll be judged for it. If you don't do it, you'll be judged for it.
Exactly.
In fact, I had the similar experience.
Actually.
When I was pregnant, I was made the SP of a district when I was 5 months pregnant, and I accepted the post. And I was there until the 9th month of my pregnancy. And there was one officer who told me while I was applying for my maternity leave, he asked me, why did you even take this? What's wrong with today girls these days? What is wrong with you all? You have to prioritize your family. You should know that you should not put your unborn child at risk. He actually said this to me on my face.
Oh God.
And I also want to add one more thing here, ma'am. We think that only male officers judge us, but I think, female officers who are senior to us or junior, whatever, they also judge us. It's not just the male officers who judge us. So, and many times we think that we'll get more support from women officers when it doesn't happen at all. In fact, they will just cut us out, and there are many male officers who would come out and support us brilliantly. Yeah.
Yeah, I really agree to what Isha ma'am said, because I had 3 bosses, my DG, my DRM, my IG, all of them were male officers. And not for a second, they told me that you won't be able to handle this division. I worked till last day of my pregnancy. I was on 40 days leave. I joined back. And they were very comfortable with this thing. But I actually had a lady officer who told me that, you are not a good mother. You should have completed your this thing. So I think gender stereotyping is towards women is gender neutral. It comes from men and women both.
It's a society, exactly. So tell me, girls, what is the one innovative thing, whether it's big or small or even tiny? What is the one innovative step which you would like to see or do, being done for women in general, or working women or bureaucrats in particular, either in your service or maybe at the macro level in the country? Anything which you would like to either do, or you would like it to be done, see that it is done, anything which you feel कि भाई ये तो होना चाहिए at least babies के लिए, या ये मैं करना चाहती हूँ, whatever, छोटा से छोटा, बड़ा से बड़ा, any thing which you would like to, which strikes you कि भाई ये होना चाहिए. Isha, would you like to?
Ma'am, I don't know if there's any innovative step which is required, in my opinion, at least in my service. But what actually can create a difference is, there are small things, as Dr. Tanisha said, that there are places where women do not have, restrooms, toilet facilities are not there. The problem is, when a construction happens, it happens from the perspective of still happens from the perspective of men. In many places, I mean, things are changing. We still have, we have more inclusive kind of constructions happening, where now, at least in a state like a more progressive state like Karnataka, we see things are changing. But I worked in other states as well. I've worked in Madhya Pradesh as well. So I see that, this consciousness about women co-workers is much less. And when it comes to construction, and in fact, why just look at the bureaucracy? Let's see our cities, the way our cities are built. Are they women friendly? Are they gender friendly? So that is something we need to understand, that the whole cities, the entire infrastructure, is it inclusive? Is it inclusive for women or disabled, or people who need extra help, or with special abilities? So I think there has to be more consciousness towards having more inclusive infrastructure in our society, in our construction, in our administration in general. So I think once that happens, it becomes easier for women to work. Now, I will just give you an example of creches or daycare centers. Daycare centers are mandatory now in places which have 100 or more women. But is it really happening? And if there are daycare centers, what are the kind of facilities we are giving? So basically, a woman who has a young child, if she wants to work, she either needs to hire a nanny whom she can trust completely, or needs to have some family support. So Debashmita could go and work after 40 days. But there are many who can't, even till their kids are 2 years, 3 years old. Once they start going to preschool, only they can start going to work completely, or take more challenging or field assignments. So we need to have more understanding of this fact that women still are the primary caregivers for the children. So once we understand that, and we give them facilities wherein they can have security that their child will be safe, they will be able to work in a much more, they will be able to contribute much more, and they will be able to give that 100%.
Correct.
Ladies, I am sorry, there's only a few minutes left.
Yes.
Has been very, very interesting session. Would like to read out few, messages which the audience has posted. One of the question by Ms. Pragya Prasun is, in the last 2 years, we have seen an increase in domestic violence cases, even in Bangalore as well. Is there one phone or helpline where these women can reach out, apart from reaching out to NGOs? That was one question. And the second question is, also, most of the times police back off if there is a Muslim couple involved. What do you suggest? I think this question can be answered by Isha. Isha, would you like to take the question?
Yeah, sure. So there's 100. They can call 112. And in Bangalore, we have, in fact, throughout the state now, we have emergency response vehicles which will reach out to you, and they will take care of the issues. And people are actually calling us. And in fact, these Hoysalas reach within 7 to 8 minutes of your call. So definitely you can call 112, which is a national emergency call, and you will receive a help soon. I'm not too sure if I understand the second question. So if you could,
I think. Yeah.
So the second question only says, which I'm not sure, but they say that most of the times police back off if there is a Muslim couple involved. Is that true, or?
I don't think so, but I don't even understand in what context they are asking this question. So yeah.
Archana, we take the next question.
So that was it, just one question, but otherwise the audience seems to be very happy with this session, including me. And they say, one of them saying it's very inspiring, and they're saying, wow, the women here are superb. In fact, I've been really listening to the session. It's very inspiring, really, really. All of you doing a wonderful job. And before we end the session, would like to, I take the privilege of, on behalf of WEF and All Ladies League, honor you an award of being the exceptional leader of excellence to each one of you. Dr. Starting with Ms. Sumita Datta, with Ms. Isha Pant, Dr. Tanisha Datta Sen, and Devashrita Chattopadhyay Banerjee. In fact, so they all of you have done a wonderful job in your respective space, and you help by this session, we are helping reaching out to so many more women and inspiring them and helping us grow. And this award will be emailed to you within 15 days. And keep shining, keep inspiring more people. We do have 4 minutes in our hand. Sumita, if you would like to conclude the session.
So yes, thanks, Archana. It's been really a very stimulating session, and it's so wonderful to interact with each one of you dynamic ladies, who are really spearheading the high tide of transformation in the field of diversity and inclusion. And these experiences, ideas, and vision which you girls have shared on this platform, this will definitely have a ripple effect, and not only in India but globally. And even if it motivates and makes a difference to a few lives, I think we've done and sort of achieved our collective goal. So may you ladies continue to evolve, energize, and expand whatever wonderful work that you are doing, and continue to make a difference. And you truly are not heroes, but sheroes.
Like that.
So, thanks so much. God bless.
We do still have a few minutes. I think anybody would like to speak and continue. 3 more minutes there.
So did I just formally introduce you guys, or of course you're all in the speaker gallery, so the introduction is there. So I dive straight into the thing. So before I sign off,
introduce them.
Isha, of course, she was heading the command center in the Bangalore Police, and recently she's gone as Superintendent of Police of Kalburgi district in north of Karnataka. And Devasmita is in Railway Protection Force in Bangalore. And and when I was interacting with her, I found that she is a very stern officer. So nobody can take it lightly, even if she's a lady. She has a great reputation. And Dr. Tanisha Datta Sen, she was in Calcutta in charge of Deputy Commissioner of the Calcutta Airport, and now she is in charge of the Bardhaman division of GST, and she is an MBBS doctor by studying, and now of course she has changed tracks. But all the best to all of you girls. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Wonderful meeting all of you. Wish you all the best, and have a great new year coming now down the line.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you
for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
All the 3 cheers for all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You will leave the meeting.